Hello, everybody. This is Ray, aka All Day Ray. And I'm here with the usual suspect, former paper hanger JJ, aka vwap trader JJ. What are we getting into today?
Well, we're going to talk about Crazy Eddie's House of ES. No, the crazy stock market that we're experiencing and the conditions that we've got going on.
Yes, yes. And we're going to talking about how to adjust to changing conditions. So, first
Exactly.
things first, before we talk about adjustments, let's talk about the current conditions so we know what we got going ahead.
Well, the current conditions are we fell completely from the highs and into the August balance that we had and fell out of it today. And, this is what happens when you don't properly build a market and you rush it. You don't put any structure underneath it, so when it falls, this happens, and it's quite ugly out there. It's not panic selling yet, but it's pretty bad, and it's thin. It's not very liquid right now.
Hmm.
And the conditions right now for trading, especially in that first hour or first 2 hours, sometimes like today, it's like trying to ride a tiger that's made out of jelly and teeth. It's crazy because no one is taking any inventory in. The wholesalers are not absorbing inventory because they just don't want to take any risk. So we got to wait until the market gets a little bit more liquid after the open.
Hmm.
Yeah, very, very, very different conditions than that they've sort of got. They lulled us into a sense of security. It just keeps going up and up
Right, right,
and up.
right. And,
You
and speaking about can you speak on how the market was prior to,
Oh, the market was you just buy it and it just goes up. You
yeah,
know,
easy game.
no, no, no. I mean, the other time frame was not selling, and they let the speculative money just take this thing and run with it like a penny stock, and they took it up too far, too fast. The whole Icarus thing, and got
Hmm.
too close to the sun and dropped it on its head. It's I'm used to that sort of thing because I used to do it for a living, but when you see the world's most respected market do that, you got to wonder um, why they let that happen.
Yeah, right, right. So with this knowledge in mind, let's talk about some adjustments we should be making. And so I guess the size of your account, Jay, is going to play a huge role into your strategical adjustments.
Yeah, strategic times. I This time of trading when things are like this, if you have a small account, and I'm saying definitely 10,000 and under, and you're trading a futures contract, you really, really, really want to wait until there's more liquidity to trade. And that doesn't mean you don't have to trade every day. You just have to wait till the market opens and everybody comes to the party. Once
Right.
people come to the party, you can move through the crowd without being seen and thrown out. You know,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. And you just adjust it. Don't increase your stops if you have a small account, because increasing your stops, you don't have the equity to do that, and you're just going to end up getting chewed up. You have to realize when to sit out if you have a small account. It's like big wave surfing. Big wave surfers have a very deep and profound respect for the ocean, and it's always the little surfers who don't know what they're doing and who get out there and just
Mm,
get pounded
yeah.
because they have no respect for the power. And the market right now is not something you want to mess with. There are times to trade, though, that can be very, very, very lucrative.
Right. Right, right, and I like how when me and you even talk privately, talking about like this. Hey, there's windows that you need to, a lot of times. Hey, I'm just going to be
Yeah,
sitting out. I'm going to be sitting out, which I
yeah,
didn't, which I
yeah,
should have.
yeah.
Lesson learned. But having that patience, waiting for those windows, because it
It,
is, it is with these wide ranges to
yeah,
trade with a small account, almost.
it is. It's hard. It's hard, and I won't like. I mean, even if on a large account that I trade, I won't. I won't unnecessarily risk money because there's no reason to, right? You know what they're doing. You know they're not taking size. What it is there's no liquidity because if you try and introduce a large size order into the market before they're ready, the price just jumps. You move the price with size. Size moves price,
Yeah.
right? Most people don't know that. And usually there's a buffer because there's more people at the party to take that size and distribute it and absorb it into inventory. And we're not having that in the first couple of hours of trade. And that's to be expected, right? It's completely expected. So we have large people in there right now banging this thing around. And that first 2 hours of trade, especially like on days like today when we went and tested the lows, retail was food for the first two. Like we were basically just chum in the
Oh yeah.
water,
Oh yeah.
right? So, don't be food,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know?
Lesson learned.
Yeah.
I think it's like almost putting in, don't put too much pressure. It's personally speaking on myself to be
Oh,
like, oh, like
yeah.
if I'm not trading, it's like that thing we always go back to talking about. If I'm not
Yeah.
trading, I'm not making money, which we know is
Yeah.
false. But
Exactly.
you
Right.
know,
Livermore said the big money is made in the waiting, and I have to agree after doing this for a little while too.
yeah,
Larger accounts, you guys, if you know what you're doing and you can trade volatility, there is no shame in having a $10 million account and saying, you know what, it's too choppy for me.
hmm
Maybe that's why maybe that's why you have $10 million, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
hmm
because you don't blow money, right? So even those accounts, I would say, work around building a position, but maybe even just give it a little time or reduce the number of contracts, right?
yeah, right,
Scale down, right?
yeah,
Some people are action junkies, and there are a couple of people like in our room today that were trading that chop, and they were like those windsurfers. They'd take the wave, do a backflip, and fall. But if you don't have those reflexes, don't beat yourself up. That's
yeah,
okay. You might be a different type of trader, right?
right, right, right. And you need the
Yeah.
the account size to do that. And like you talking about
Exactly.
building position, widening the
Exactly.
stops, and these are all things that small accounts can't really do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And
So
and there
your
will be a
options are
time.
limited.
Yeah. There will be a time it's going to go back to normal. Don't worry, right? You'll build your account, and the next time this happens, you'll kill it.
Right, right. Yeah. Like I feel like next time this does happen, I'm gonna be more prepared. It's just
Oh yeah.
growing pains, I guess we'll put
Yeah.
it. All right, good stuff. So yeah, moving on to the next slide, liquidity. And now I know this plays a huge importance, and I know you've touched on this a little bit, but yeah, go ahead.
Liquidity has been a lifelong obsession of mine. And the reason is because having taken companies public, I would have to make a market for people to sell that stock into, right? You take a company public, you create stock. So I would have to create demand to be able to absorb our supply. And that's liquidity. Liquidity is being able to move a large amount of stock into a market without adversely affecting the price. In the mornings in the ES, because there's uncertainty in the markets, people are nervous, right, in times like this, and that's natural. There's not going to be a lot of liquidity, and large priced orders move the market violently, and they also move it um, violently back and forth. So there'll be a move, and then there'll be no follow through. So people will chase that move, then get stopped out when it comes back, and I saw a lot of that today, and it's very very hard to trade. And I know people who have big big accounts who won't jump into that, right?
hmm
There is a lot of there is an unfortunate problem ever since they got rid of the large majority of the wholesalers, and they took a lot of they took the banks out of this, so we have less people now that are providing liquidity, and this is what they built, so this is what they got. If we had more market making firms, if we had, if you have one market making firm that controls 20% of the retail, 20% of the order flow coming into the United States stock market, right? I don't know how that's not a monopoly,
Yeah,
but hello, if you had a couple of hundred market makers like we used to in the old days, the NASDAQ Red Book was the size of the Bible. I bet you it's like a pamphlet now, right? The
mm
Red Book was the guide of all the market makers, right?
hmm
And it was like thick like a Bible, right? Now I bet you it's like 2 pages, right?
yeah, right,
You do things like that, you're going to get less liquid markets. So what we just need to do as retail traders is wait till more people come to the party, and that doesn't mean you have to wait a week. You just have to wait a couple hours, maybe past the open, right? And
yeah,
then like they say up in Saskatchewan, it's good eating.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think this is the biggest lesson I've learned through these past couple of weeks. And now this is also what applies to like the slippage that happens.
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's going to happen in these kind of market conditions too.
yeah,
And in all those brokerage firm contracts you sign, they'll say, due to market volatility, we cannot guarantee. And that's just them basically, look, guys, look, hey, it's a little crazy out there. Your fills are going to be garbage sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something called stock ahead, which no retail trader I've ever talked to has ever heard of. Stock ahead means when you have an order in an equity and you go put in like an order to sell 1,000 shares of stock, there might be 1,000,000 shares ahead of you that you don't know about, right? And size takes preference. Those market makers
Oh,
give
okay.
preference to their large size
Yeah.
clients. So your little piker 500 shares means nothing, right?
Yeah.
When you've got 1,000,000 shares ahead of you, right, at probably a different limit. So do not be surprised if your fill is going to take a while to come in, and it's not going to be where you wanted it to be. Because there's some hedge fund guy that's paying your market maker $2 million a year in commissions. He gets better service than you do.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, this is something we definitely got to keep in mind because it was like even today,
Oh,
I'm trying to punch out of a position, and
yeah,
it's 2 points lower than I tried to punch out at. I
yeah,
was like, wait, what the hell's going
yeah,
on here? But
yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah.
I don't,
That's the market, and you know what? We're at least lucky that we get fills, because in the old days, oh boy,
yeah.
you'd get, oh yeah, right.
Hmm.
Good luck, because you're trading on the phone. You don't see. Then there were tons of time you didn't even see the print. You were just told what the price was by over the phone by your broker, right? Because you didn't have a screen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we've come a long way. We've
Yeah.
come a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next slide here. Now this to me is the trick, real tricky here. We have strategies, JJ, that worked, in the past before
Hmm.
markets changed.
Hmm.
How do we,
Definitely.
yeah, how do we adapt quick enough? How do we stay on top of this and even knowing that we have an edge?
Right. Well, the thing is, when you're new to trading, you can't adapt quickly enough. So what you must do is be patient and not put pressure on yourself to try and figure this out in a
Yeah.
day or a
Yeah.
month.
Right.
Because I'm telling you right now, there are teams of guys who have very fancy letters behind their names who don't know what's going on. Okay.
Mm,
So don't feel bad. And they went to schools that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Okay. So don't feel bad. It takes time to understand what the agenda of all of this is, right? And where that other time frame, because trust me, there's trillions of dollars of private equity money and trillions of dollars of money management money that's sitting there, right? And they're going to put it to work when they understand the implications of what happened with the virus. So we'll watch that. Patience, in the daytime frame, we're trading, we're in, we're out, we're flat overnight, and then we trade Globex, right, when we can. We
mhm.
just we just take what we can, and we this is not a time to be greedy, right? This is a time, if you know what you're doing, right, and you've got good experience under your belt, and you've been forged in fire, then you can be greedy because you know what you're doing. For people who don't know what they're doing, and even for myself, because it's been a long time since 2008, that was a long time ago, right? I will err on the side of caution more than I will jump into crazy things, right?
Yeah.
And this is coming from a guy. I mean, I'm going to say it quite frankly. This volatility, right? What's going on in the markets this last couple of weeks? That's like a Tuesday morning for me. Okay, I'm used to the craziest things you couldn't even imagine the stuff I've seen. Okay, so this is nothing for me. And if I'm saying, you know what, let's see what's going on. Just trust me, right?
Take his
Because
word.
we don't,
Yeah.
yeah, take my word for it. Because you know, honestly, this is working out pretty decently. The price action is not bad once there's more people. Our markets have wonderful integrity. The United States stock market is like nothing I've ever seen before. We're pushing volume and pushing the edges of it, and it's holding,
Yeah.
right? The plumbing, the infrastructure underneath it, so far, you know, um, four-leaf clovers and everything, so far everything is rock solid. The plumbing is good. And if we have that, then we can weather the storms and let this darn thing trade and let it trade out. And, we'll get through this, right?
Right.
It's just, it's a storm, you just pull in the sails, the storm's coming, you pull in the sails, let it pass, and, you know, off we go again.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, no, I wish I would have heeded to your warnings last week. You know me, I'm a little
Uh,
more cavalier, a little more ambitious.
well,
And so I
that's
see the
okay.
volatility. I'm
That's
like, yeah,
okay. Yeah, it's
let's make this money.
see, you always got to worry about price though. You don't want to, following price is like
Yeah.
following that pretty girl down in that back alley. It's not a good idea, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like you could wake up without a kidney,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So just be careful,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Don't follow price,
if I would have heeded your warnings, if I would have watched a little bit more than actually being active, because now I feel definitely a little more adjusted this week. I'm doing much better this week.
Hey, you nailed it today,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
nailed it today, and like you were bebopping and scatting all over the bids. It was wonderful,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And sometimes that takes a week or two to get used to that because
Exactly.
we've had this sort of snooze fest where we just keep going up for like 18 months. So of course, all of a sudden they drop the thing on its head. It's going to be a little weird. So
Yeah.
give yourself a break. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Remember, we got to stay alive for the next 20 years to trade. Like
Yeah.
no sense killing ourselves now, like, with stress,
Yeah.
right?
No, no, you're absolutely
You
right.
know,
Absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. Now I know this next point probably not advocated for someone newer, probably definitely not for myself as well, but I know you like to put out feeler trades to kind of help you, get a feel.
yeah.
How it
Now
works
that
out.
that is that okay, honestly, for new people, don't do this, right? This is a thing that I got from making markets, right? And what I used to do when I was making a market, or if I was wanting to short something or something, because I have inventory and things like that, I could put trades in. I would hit the bid with 100 shares to see where it prints. So if a stock's $5 and I sell 100 shares and it prints at 501 and a half, I know that they're price improving off the bid, so there's an order underneath it, right? That's a small tape reading skill, and I'll know how to adjust my trades. In the
Mm,
ES, what I do is I will take one micro contract to get a feel of the market only when I feel that the price action has become liquid enough to warrant even putting on a trade, right? And I'll test it. And if it doesn't happen right away, I'll scratch or I'll have like a 5 tick loss on $1.25. So, I'm losing $6-7, right?
mm,
And I won't do that a lot, but if I do that trade and it works and it confirms my suspicion of what the agenda of the prop guys are that are moving this thing around, then I know how to tell the room how to trade, right? But in my room, I say, don't do that. Let me take the paper cut, right? If I lose $7, let me take the loss. You guys don't need to do it. I'll tell you what's going on. And you don't have a feel for it just yet, right? So it's something that a lot of us old guys used to do it. You'd hit the bid with 100 shares, or you'd go lift the offer to see where it prints, and that print tells you what's going on with the order flow. And that's when you got to remember that that's an older kind of technique, and I
yeah.
am a bit of an old war dog.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's only something you can get with experience. 'Cause, we were
yeah,
talking about that. It's like you can't teach feel. This is not a
no,
teachable concept that comes
no.
with experience. Yeah.
Right, and I'm always feeling for the seller. My whole career I was like a golden retriever. I would go and retrieve the bid, right? They'd be like, JJ, go find the bid, right? And I'd go find the bid. So I had to like look through the market. I know there's somebody somewhere in the world is buying 100,000 shares of this guy's stock. I got to go find that order in the maze of all these market makers, right? So it's a completely different way I look at things, and retail traders have no idea what that even means, right?
Hmm.
So I'm just, I was raised a little differently, and you know, it's just one of those things I do. And in the room, I'll tell guys, or I'll go, yeah, something's not right here. Or okay, it's they're trading it vanilla, right? If they're trading it vanilla, that means they're trading it normal, or they're doing something crooked, right?
Hmm. Yeah. No, good stuff. Good stuff. I love it. Now, this next topic, both me and you feel like this is definitely overlooked in the retail
this
trading community.
is this is something, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but listen, folks, if you are a US resident and you are trading at an offshore brokerage firm to avoid the pattern day trading rule, I strongly suggest you be very, very careful and consult with some sort of a legal professional, because having an offshore account, being a US citizen, I don't know. You know, the only reason that people are doing this is to short stocks that they can't get borrows on in the U.S. and to avoid the pattern day trading rule. There are a couple of these joints down in the Caribbean and in other places, and they're probably going to send a hitman after me, and that's okay. But you know, I listen. You know, I've set up 3 offshore firms for people. My first client was a Swiss bank. I think I know a little bit about the offshore business. Okay, plus the fact that I can hide a short position somewhere in the world where nobody will ever find it. So here's the thing, right? You have no recourse if they take your money, right? You have no recourse with the SEC. You have no recourse with FDIC. There's none of that stuff, right? That exists there. Their accounts are insured by Lloyd's of London, probably $1 million for the whole firm, not per account, right?
Hmm.
Because to write that kind of insurance, there's no way. Secondly, stock borrows, right? You're paying for a stock borrow. 9 times out of 10, they're charging you for a borrow. They're taking the other side of your trade, and or they're shorting naked, right? And
Hmm.
your order's not even printing, right? So either one of these things, you know, I understand people want to trade. It's a great thing. Try trading the micro. You can open an account for $500 for goodness sakes, and no PDT rule, no borrows. You click to short, 78 cents round trip, and your money's safe in the United States, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, these firms, there's the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. There's oversight, right? When you're dealing with offshore, listen, I had a buddy of mine lose 100 grand at one of these firms, and I had another friend of mine lose $1 million when the firm collapsed, right? There is no recourse. It is just you are sitting on a keg of dynamite, picking your teeth with a kitchen match. Offshore is for people who are wealthy, who can afford a proper lawyer, who have structures set up. If you're like trading in an offshore account in your own name, funding it with a US bank card, I don't know. Look,
As a
I'm
new
not a
trader,
US.
you
Yeah,
know, it's ridiculous. You know, like
listen, I don't know. I'm scared of the U.S. government. I'm a Canadian, and I'm scared of the U.S. government, right?
yeah,
And I won't. I listen. If I'm a Canadian and I won't hold an offshore account, I don't know. You know
yeah.
what?
And I just want to, you know,
It's,
yeah, and I just want to say, Jay, like it's like as a new trader, you already have so much like the odds stacked up against you,
oh,
and then like
yeah,
going on offshore brokerage because
right.
you want to avoid the PDT rule. Like it just doesn't make sense to me, right?
No,
Like
no. It's, you know, and the other thing is, you know, here's the thing: the Chicago Merc, and God bless them, has given us a gift of these micro futures. Right? They allow us to trade basically with training wheels. Right? If you have a bad day, you lose 50 or $100, and you can recover from that. Right? So it's a great way to understand market structure, how markets work, how price action works. It's wonderful. It's a stable market. I mean, even with all the madness that's gone on this week, they're not backing away from trades. You can still get off 10 contracts. Sure, you're going to have a little slippage, but you know, the market, the United States stock market, you can't beat it. Why do you think the world takes their companies public on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ?
mhm, mhm,
It's the only game in town, right?
mhm.
You've got the liquidity, you've got the system, you've got the plumbing. If you only knew the kind of plumbing that runs underneath the surface of this thing, it's fantastic, right?
Mhm.
And the fact that we're clearing trades when we're trading billions of shares of volume, and we don't have any clearing problems, right? It's just, you know, clearing and settlement, and that's $1 billion business in itself, and it's being run very, very well. I'm giving a shout out to everybody who works in clearing, who nobody even knows you guys exist. We love you.
Shout out to them. Yeah. So in other words, don't make life harder on you. The odds are already stacked up against us as retail traders.
It's
Don't make
just,
your life more difficult. I
yeah,
mean, and look what
just,
happened, right? We all know
yeah,
what happened with
right,
Robin Hood,
yeah,
right, Jay? And they're
right.
not offshore.
And those jokers aren't even offshore, okay? And they can't even run a firm properly, okay?
Yeah.
So I mean, listen, you know, you have some of the best brokerage firms in the United States, right? Uh, just stay at home.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to trade, you know, an equity on the pattern day trading rule, maybe try another strategy. There's other ways
Yeah,
to
exactly.
learn how to trade without putting yourself at risk. And finally, if you are stubborn, right, and you're trading offshore, don't keep a lot of money in these places, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Get your, like, remember, every month, if you're banking money every month, take it out of there, right? You know?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to, right? I mean, you absolutely cannot keep any money on there that you're not affording. You can't afford to
Yeah,
lose.
exactly, right?
Yeah, you can't. I
Temptation,
mean,
right?
because I don't have an option as a U.S. online poker player. I have to play
Mhm.
offshore. But you damn well know, Jay. I don't keep the money I have on there.
Yeah,
It's not going to kill me if this somehow the site shuts down, just takes my money.
exactly,
I'm
exactly.
not, but
You know,
yeah.
I mean,
So
hey, listen, thieves used to have honor, and the offshore, business used to be a lot better. But it's not the same anymore.
yeah,
Okay, and the U.S. government has a very, very, very long arm and a very, very scary reach. And one of these days, the SEC just hasn't gotten around to it. But when they find out, because they're busy and they're understaffed, but when they find out that what's going on, and it's not going to be pretty,
not going to be
right?
good. Yeah,
Because they're just going to cut off clearing firm access to these rinky-dink firms, and that's going to be it. And you're going to be jammed,
yep, yep.
right?
So hey, use your heads, folks. Use
Yeah.
your heads. All right, and that's going to wrap it up for our webinar. So if you guys want to learn more about market profile, this is our room, microefutures.com. As you see the bullet points. This is what we're about. Appreciate everybody listening. Come check us out. We're doing a 3-day free trial. JJ, anything before we part?
No, just be safe out there. And anybody needs me, please contact me. It's a heck of a market out there. But if you need a hand, even if you're just having a bad day, just hit me up and I'll talk you through it.
Absolutely. All right. Appreciate everybody listening. Thanks, JJ. You guys have a good evening.
Good night, folks.